Hello one and all, and welcome to Riftlab Clash 3. I am Initialized, joined by Anu, bringing you the absolute best in some Riftbound action. We got ourselves Riftlab Clash number 3 coming right at you this evening. We're going through 4 rounds of hot Tournament League action. I've even got a little spiel for you before we get into the rest of it to explain exactly what's going on, because we've got a bi-weekly tournament here where players will compete in pods of up to 16 competitors over those 4 rounds. Participating in Clash events like the one today will earn players league points that go towards your overall standing for Riftlab League. And that's kind of important because the top players at the end of the season will receive a round 1 bye in our premier 2-day 128 player event Riftlab trials that will take place on the 2nd and 3rd of October. It's damn exciting. As I said, I'm Initialized. I'm joined by one of the great brains in this game so far, namely Anu. How are you doing, my friend? How excited are you to see some people get some of those all-important tournament points?
It's Friday, and that just means one great thing, which is that there's more Riftbound to watch here at Riftbound Clash, and I'm super excited. You know, we've had some pretty incredible tournaments over the past few weeks. There was the Guangzhou Regional Qualifier, the Beijing Regional Qualifier, and now I'm trying to see what happens when you have these massive 500-player events and how it impacts, you know, the online tournaments that we have over here at Riftlab. I'm pretty excited to see our first deck.
It's not a Kai'Sa, for one. We've got ourselves a Yasuo up front. It'll be, of course, this one. Got that ability to just drop creatures into battlefields out of nowhere. How you feel about Yasuo in general? Anything you're spotting in this deck list is kind of giving you an idea about how they want to play out this game.
Yeah, Yasuo is really interesting. I mean, the pilot here, GhaelWinds, who is, you know, one of the beloved members of the community Discord, has been playing this deck for a sizable amount of time, really just giving the archetype some love here. So, like, the passive ability allows you to move friendly units from to and from base, and so we're going to see a lot of action-packed tricks here, and you know, like Deceivery and things like that. Ride the Wind, a card that I'm particularly enthused about. And then also, you know, the chosen champion Yasuo, remorseful, very, very powerful. I want to see how Gail has basically tuned and tweaked this deck, and how it's going to play out here in our first round today.
For sure, and again, we've got to keep our eye on the opposite number, namely, a bit of a lore matchup here. Yasuo v Ahri, pseudo-lovers quarrel here. Ahri a little bit different, a lot of debuffs, a lot of those kind of abilities to reduce people's attack when they stun, or their might when they stun, and try to conquer over those battlefields. A lot of counterspell ability, a lot of reactions I'm spotting in there. How are you feeling about this particular deck list?
Yeah, I mean, Ahri was one of the archetypes that I was first drawn to when I first started playing. Blue gives you a lot of card draw. Green gives you a lot of interaction in the form of, like, Defy, Discipline, Great Value, Charm, another very elegant, effective spell. And honestly, this is the matchup where you want to be playing Ahri. The passive ability here is going to cause a lot of headaches for Yasuo specifically. So it'll be very interesting to see how this matchup plays out. I would put points towards the Nine-Tailed Fox taking the lead here, but we'll see if Gail and his practice time with Yasuo is going to be enough to pull ahead here.
We'll see exactly how it plays out on the Rifts. We've got battlefields up and coming. Production, give us the game. Look at that. They are so on it. That's very smooth. Hello again, folks. We're going to be seeing exactly how it plays out from here as we'll get through to see our initial mulligans for the day.
Yeah, so for anyone who is new to the game, the way the mulligan process works is both players will draw 4 cards, and then you can recycle up to 2 cards to the bottom of your deck, which means you can just put them to the bottom of your deck and you draw 2 more cards here. So in the early game, I think we're looking for very cheap spells, kind of like the Stalwart Poros that we see on both sides of the table. That's 2 energy for 2 might with shield. And then after that, we want to see a couple interactive spells here, and you know, both decks have them: Defies, Disciplines, and even a stack deck here from the Yasuo side.
Worth noting as well, because we've not had a chance to chat about it yet. We've got Double Dreaming Tree as our battlefield, so all about making sure that you manage to get your first friendly unit in there with some spell casts on there. So trying to get a lot of early draw.
Yeah, very interesting thing here to select Dreaming Tree. You know, generally speaking, it's gonna, your neutral battlefield that you want to start with should usually just be one that is beneficial for you and not for your opponent. So in green decks, it's kind of good because you have all of these disciplines and things like that. Other spells that target on guard, whatnot like that. That being said, when you're playing the green mirror match, you're definitely going to see a lot of reciprocity, and then it could become something of a liability.
we'll see. Well, exactly, we have got those kind of green v green mirror matches, and unlike other games where green is involved, Calm here for the side of Riftbound does have a lot of those counter spells, a lot of those interactions, and when you've got legends in the likes of Ahri and Yasuo as well, there's a lot of debuffs and stuff coming flying on through and people moving into unusual locations. Does feel like so far we are getting, slightly to Natedog, but nothing crazy. So far, it's just both sides decide, and we're going to pick one of these battlefields and get those early draws in while we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at the hand here, I mean, Gail has definitely committed to the board here with the Wielder of the Water.
Yes.
And has that one copy of Defy in hand. I'm actually kind of excited to see what this Mind Splitter is going to do. It's a great top end. But this is kind of interesting here with the combat that Natedog is choosing to do, slamming the Yordle and the Sprite into the Poros.
Of course, we've got to keep your eyes on just some of those earlier showdowns. Got no one with anything super crazy out there right now, but those battlefields, at least for now, going a little bit better for the side of Natedog. You said it was going to be a bit of a rougher matchup, especially because Ahri's ability to just debuff your might everywhere can get very obnoxious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that I like here is Gail using the mites to kill off the lecturing Yordle, because we know that the Sprite token is going to go away here. And even with this Mind Splitter on the next turn, I mean, it's kind of your only play here. You do have to put something on the board that is pretty impactful. Getting rid of that Blitzcrank is a huge move, because now it gives you a little bit more ability to actually deploy your units. A lot of the time, the units in Yasuo, they're going to be lower might, and Blitzcrank being able to unconditionally force your unit into a base when you're not ready to fight is definitely not where you want to be. So good snipe here with the Mind Splitter.
Yeah, very important, that one as well, because again, that Blitzcrank being able to pull someone into a place where, say, you pull in Ahri, your actual champion, you bring in the Blitzcrank as well to drag someone towards them and give that massive -3 debuff to might. You can just take out key targets very easily there if you find the right angle for it, but Mind Splitter value is really good, and gets things rolling. That Chaos side of Yasuo versus the Mind side on Ahri, just changing things around in terms of those cards you do have access to for all. You do have that green mirror matchup there with the Calm.
Yeah, and I mean, this is kind of where I'm excited to see how the Mind Splitter is going to do. Ahri giving units -1 might is kind of a big deal and changes the entire calculation. I mean, like, I always forget about this passive ability and it always bites me in the butt. But Mind Splitter with 7 might is going to be so massive that you're going to need a string of spells from the Ahri side in order to take it down. And we already see 1 copy of Stupefy. We see that 1 copy of Smokescreen, both of which will help. But then we'll see how the Defy versus Defy plays out.
So, with that in mind, see whether you can get those spell chains down you're asking for. And look, for all Ahri has those debuffs, as you've been noting. Mind Splitter is just a big body, to be honest. And you've managed to already get that discard down on the Blitzcrank. You managed to get a lot of value from it already. Not obviously in a battlefield right now. You do have that Yasuo, though, to just threaten the move of any particular creature from the middle of nowhere, as long as you've got a couple of those runes up and available. And at this point in the game as well, you've got so much in terms of runic power available to you that Yasuo's ability is pretty much always an option, it feels like.
Yeah, really interesting player. So I mean, for me, the part that's interesting is Gail just played the Mind Splitter and knows basically what Natedog's hand is entirely. The fact that we're going into combat despite knowing about the Stupefy, despite knowing about the Smokescreen, is kind of a massive, tell that Gail has
something in his hand.
Yeah, exactly. Option coverage, right? The other thing that I'm noticing too is I think we spent 1 extra energy from Natedog's side, and now we're not able to hold up Defy and Smokescreen or Discipline, which is a big thing to keep track of here from a, can I cast my spells perspective.
It is worth noting in both players' hands there is that Defy there, so that ability to start getting some of those counterspell chains down could get a little interesting here, but I've got to note that Natedog, we've not really been talking about it, has just been not so quietly picking up a lot of these early points. Is at 5 already, not necessarily near that 7 mark where the whole kind of system changes and you sort of start to get in that position where you have to hold the battlefield at the beginning of your turn to get that kind of decisive point, Uno style, I suppose, is the one it reminds me of, sort of slightly childishly card game wise, but there you go. See whether that can be something to keep our eyes on, as there is that 6th point, 2 to go, as it looks like Natedog just in a very good position here, honestly.
Yeah, looking kind of grim here for Gale, especially with not just one but two copies of the Thousand Tail Watcher in the hand here. I mean, if you can slam those back to back, that is a great way to sort of contest your opponent's battlefield. And notably, the fact that he put the Traveling Merchant into the Dreaming Tree with the Mind Splitter signifies that he wants to mitigate the point disparity by just holding one of those battlefields as long as possible, just to get more draw steps to keep the game, have a chance at winning here. Double Thousand Tail Watcher is going to shut that plan down quite firmly.
Yeah, and you kind of also end up in this position, right, where you get one down and GhaelWinds kind of goes, well, maybe I've actually got more of an opportunity than I think. And then the next turn comes around and there's another one to go. Or you can double drop them and make things really tricky, because then between the Legend passive and then the Thousand Tail Watcher passive, it gets very, very obnoxious. Of course, I think that's actually using the art from Legends of Runeterror. It's certainly a creature that came up in that particular variant of Riot card games. There goes that Defy already. We're immediately responded to on the other side, so both of those now out of hands. Worth noting, of course, the Natedog still got one in hand there.
Yeah, honestly, Nate's hand is quite stacked here with 5 cards to 2 cards, and I have to wonder, where did this card advantage disparity come from? It must have been from the very early discipline that we cast that let us not only draw one card off the discipline, but then one from the Dreaming Tree, and then sort of snowball that advantage as much as possible. Now we're going to see it happen again here with discipline powering up the Sprite Mother, and I almost feel like you're forced here to play your own discipline from Gail. Well, maybe not. I mean, this is a trade, but you need units, you need points. That's the big thing.
Yeah, and if you're already struggling for card advantage, you have to burn all your cards just to sort of go even on a trade, is still a win for Natedog. You've got much more in hand to roll with, and we've already noted those Thousand Tail Watchers are going to be really scary here. There's the Defy coming out, and yeah, it is looking pretty tricky.
This is actually a good exchange for Gail. So the way Dreaming Tree works, you're still going to get to draw a card off of the Dreaming Tree ability for choosing the Mind Splitter. You don't get the +2 might, but realistically speaking, the only thing that you would like to have a unit on the battlefield afterwards to hold and score some points. But you're still trading here for the battlefield, Mind Splitter and Gumbo, the Traveling Merchant, for the Sprite Mother. So it's not like you're losing out on combat, except for the fact that we just top decked a Stupefy, and that's actually kind of just a completely combat sweeping draw. Holy moly, that's insane.
That's pretty nuts, actually. But there you go. I'm just looking at Natedog here. Still got 4 cards in hand. There we go with another Spirit Watcher getting drawn as well. And I'm just seeing this and then going, can you really stop Nate claiming one of these battles? Because theoretically, they're going to try and contest both, and you are going to be caught in a catch-22 that feels like there's no way out of it. I think this might well just be it.
Well, let's see. We haven't used one thing from Gail's side this entire game so far, and that is actually the Yasuo Legend ability.
Very true.
So maybe that's going to be enough to get us, or keep us around for another turn or so. But I don't know what Gail's plan is just for these double Thousand Tail Watchers. Yeah, the Foxes are just so good at closing out games, especially when you have that point lead, because all you have to do then is just build up a board and then on one turn play a Fox and then slam your creatures in, or you're so far ahead here from Natedog's side that you could literally play one Fox, just use the -3. You don't even need to leverage it fully, and then the next turn you play another Fox, and then you have 14 might swinging in. And that's insane. That's so much might.
It's very tricky. And you're absolutely right, because at that point, you're also in this position where you basically get 2 turns of massive AoE debuffs. Because again, read that Thousand Tail Watcher card carefully, folks. It's -3 to all 2 units up there. It's enemy units. Not just one, not a single target. But then again, it's a 7-drop. It's not exactly a cheap card to get out. But this late in the game, it's certainly a devastating finisher.
All right. Looks like we're spending a couple energy here. We'll see what comes down. We do have the Sunlit Guardian in play already. That one's also just kind of a nice mid-range unit that you can play either turn 1, turn 2, and has decent stats to transfer to the late game. And so you can sort of see here, the fact that we didn't slam the Fox means that we are kind of playing it slow, and I'm kind of down for that. You have time, so why not leverage it to develop a little bit more so that when you do play the Fox, you will have basically an uncontested victory.
Bringing in champion Ahri, not legend Ahri, of course, who has her own debuffs to opponents to add on to the massive debuffs in general. In fact, I just feel like Nate's general deck is built around making sure that enemy units have as little might as possible at all possible moments, and that's just another part of that crew. Again, on attack or defend as well, it's just a very consistent, significant debuff to key targets.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting here. I'm also thinking about the Wielder of Water, like how they interact with both Ahri and the Fox. Now, when the Fox comes into play, that's when the -3 ability actually triggers. So you're not going to be able to maximize the full debuff from the Fox, but I believe the way the stacks work, you will get full value if you are attacking with Ahri into one of these wielders. So I don't think that's enough to give Gail the extra might that he needs, like through rules and shenanigans.
Yeah.
Stay around, but that is one thing going in his favor.
Yeah, definitely tricky. Again, there's that one card face down to keep your eyes on. But just in general, we're in this position where, yes, you've got those kind of mitigating factors with the Wielders of Water, but is it really enough to stop what's coming in? The fact you got that back in the back of your mind, those double foxes for Natedog to play with. We'll note that GhaelWinds has at least caught up largely in points here. He's at 6 himself, and we'll need to see Natedog make a move here soon. Not that there's a lot in hand, really, to change things around here for GhaelWinds. The on-guard is good, but I don't think it's going to be enough to turn things around unless I'm misreading exactly how much power that's going to give here.
Yeah, no, it's only 2. It's only 2, and then you have 4 because the wielder is defending alone, so that give you a maximum of 6. But
Which is
imagine,
still decent, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, so here's the first debuff, and it's going to put both of the wielders down to 1. And then when you attack, that's when the wielders jump up again from 1 to 3. But with Ahri attacking, I think you will give one of the wielders -2, so that'll debuff one of them down to 1 again. And so in that instance, it's like you have
What
one
do you do?
with 1. Yeah, with 1 might, 1 with 3 might, and that's not even close to enough to survive this onslaught. Yeah.
Tricky, tricky, tricky. And we said it was going to come to that position. Looked like Nate was going to clean this up a little earlier on, but just wanted to get all the ducks, I suppose in this case, foxes in a row, and has done so. What's the top deck?
Wait a minute.
That's not bad.
That's actually maybe just enough to survive. Is it enough to survive here? That's an insane draw.
So you can get someone to return, can't you? A battlefield with less than 3 or might to return his hand. Is Ahri at that point? Would it be enough to get rid of the Sunlit Guardians, maybe?
I don't know. Drawing another gust. This is kind of weird because now, I mean, I get it. You gust your own Wielder of Water so that you draw. Wait, actually,
Is he gonna try and Yasuo it back in?
No. I'm actually no. The game is over here. I'm not even sure
Okay.
if you actually draw another copy of Gust because Dreaming Tree only says the first time each turn. So I'm gonna guess that that was just a concession there because we didn't hit what
Fair.
we wanted.
Fair enough. There we go. We saw the gust and got excited, and in the end, it was just used for a stylish bow out. But there we go. Here's our sideboards, though, so we get ready for our second game. Of course, Nate, in the end, convincing win. Expecting any changes to these decks from what you've seen from Nate? Probably not so much, but I could see that Yasuo deck just looking for a couple shifts out here because it's not an easy matchup so far.
Yeah, so from the Ahri side, the first thing that I'll note is that we don't need too much here. I mean, the Zanyas, for example, not really useful because out of green-purple, we're not expecting too much removal. So similarly, protecting our units with Retreat, we're not actually generating that much value. The card that I'm drawn to is Singularity, and maybe, just maybe, you could argue for Dr. Mundo, but I think that's really in there for the Kai'Sa matchup. So just the one card, very small changes. Yep, not too much.
Well, whilst as well we've got that second there, why would you run Mundo into Kai'Sa? Again, for myself, who's still kind of getting used to the game, I obviously know that Kai'Sa is crazy popular right now. Very silly ability, folks, to those who've not been paying attention. She basically just gets a free mana, runic power, of whatever color you so choose, and it's very, very strong. So why would you run that Mundo into a Kai'Sa? Is that what makes that a good card to drop into a deck?
Oh, he gets big. Mundo gets chunky. He's come straight out of the gym.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I've seen him have 20 plus might in some games, and Kai'Sa just doesn't have a good answer to it. So yeah, but looking at the sideboard here, in this matchup, it's kind of interesting. I kind of like the cheeky Mask of Foresight as a way to sort of counteract the Ahri legend ability, and then maybe since you're on you're going first, you could consider bringing in the Mystic Poro and shaving, a 3-cost unit from your deck so you're a little bit more aggressive. Beyond that, the third Defy because you're in the green mirror. Actually, there's a lot of options you could bring in, and maybe you could even contemplate the Rebuke, but I don't know if this is necessarily a Rebuke matchup.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Rebukes. The problem is you Rebuke, say, one of those foxes, and it just comes back in the next turn and adds another set of debuffs. Because it's not like you're removing the ETB once it's left the board. So it can get a bit trickier there. Back round to our second match. Natedog, winner of that first round. Mulligan's coming on through. How are we feeling about our opening hands here? And again, you mentioned it before, but a lot of it's just on what I call a magic mana curve, right? But what kind of is your opening angle here for first couple turns in an average Riftbound game?
Yeah, so I think if I want to keep it in terms of Magic as well, a lot of the games for Riftbound, they do feel a bit like limited, where you want to kind of curve out as best as possible, hold up interaction where you can, but every turn you want to try to maximize the amount of energy that you're spending. Gail does it wonderfully here with the turn 1 Wielder of Water, and similarly, same thing happens here from Ahri's side. And actually, I do want to double check. I wonder if we're supposed to have 4 runes in play thanks to the obelisk for the Ahri player, but we'll figure that out. Oh no, we recycled one because we have to play.
Okay, recycled. Yes,
yeah. So this is also a good turn here for Natedog as well, because you get to play the Ahri. You're holding up Defy for something, and wow, that's actually kind of insane that we didn't get to crash in with the Wielder because of the Ahri. So crazy stuff.
We'll keep our eyes on that one again. Worth noting, Obelisk of Power, as you noted, that ability to get some extra runes out, and of course Targon's Peak, which can get a bit interesting with that readying of more runes. Can be certainly interesting to keep our eyes on. And again, for the less initiated here, when we got that opportunity, unlike a lot of those other card games out there as well, or just TCGs in general, there is a kind of splitting of resources in terms of what you're getting in there. Normally, quality and quantity are somewhat immaterial with your runes. You want X amount of X color and life is fine. Whereas for Riftbound, actually, exhausting and power costs are separate costs and require different payment methods, which I think is really interesting to track in terms of how you ramp up into a game, how you spend your resources. Because as you noted, you have to do things like recycle some runes in some cases. You have to get rid of some of your power base, your energy base, your mana base, whatever your term would be for whatever game you're playing. And that definitely gets quite interesting to track as the game goes on in terms of that stratification between quality and quantity in general.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I think makes the games of Riftbound like very balanced, is because you play your heavy hitters, but then there's like a down, like it's kind of like using Hyper Beam in Pokemon, right? You power out one very strong attack, but then you have to like wait a turn, and so
catch
it's like
your
mitigation,
breath.
Yeah, exactly. And once you get late into the game, you have abundant energy and power and runes to sort of go through. So then you get to play more heavy hitters and in succession. But in the early game, I feel like your overall play is kind of tempered down by these power costs, which is great. And speaking of a crazy play there, that Mind Splitter that we saw just got rid of some. I think it's a discipline it got rid of. Yeah, so there's still 2 smoke screens and a Singularity in hand here for the Ahri side. But yeah. Good play here with the Mind Splitter for Gail.
Yeah, and just in general, we've been talking about how important discipline is in some of these mirror matchups, and it just is in general a very, very strong ability.
Agree. I think it's one of those things that originally I thought was like medium, but then when you staple
the more
draw
you
a
see
card,
it, yeah.
yeah, draw a card makes everything better. So low commit, high floor. It's all around just a fantastic card here, and we're gonna see the texture of this game also change a little bit here. We saw Mind Splitter take over the Obelisk, and so now I almost feel like we're kind of in like this holding pattern, where both players are just trying to accrue resources. Both players are trying to figure out how they're supposed to break board stalls. In this case, I'm going to have to give the edge over to Natedog because double Singularity with the smoke screens is really, really, really good, especially at clearing tougher units like the Mind Splitter.
Yeah, let's just say that again. That is to each of up to 2 units. That's just a lot in general Like, that's scary. Like, you've just got to keep your eyes on that in general. You called it out as a potential sideboard option. It has been brought in, and when you do have to deal with things like that Mind Splitter, which is coming with a fair amount of might, yes, you've already got some debuffs, but sometimes you just need straight up removal, and that does that just fine.
Yeah, absolutely here. And that was another sick top deck in the other Mind Splitter. So in the meantime, you can sort of see the push and pull, right? On this turn, we see Natedog retreat from Targon's Peak because we want to leverage the Ahri ability alongside the singularities that are in our hand. Really sweet play here that you can do, which is you can play the singularity to go and deal 6 damage to Mind Splitter and then some other unit. And then when you attack with the Ahri, you give the Mind Splitter -2 might so that it turns into not a 7 might unit with 6 damage, but a 5 might unit with 6 damage, which will clear it.
Kill it.
Yeah. But in a more deceptive, tricky way, that isn't exactly intuitive, but it keeps the Ahri alive, and that's what's really important.
And that's a tricky bit of stack manipulation there, where basically, but as you said, look, you can't, at least within the context of the game as it stands, the cards within Riftbound as it stands, you can't negative someone to 0 power. They can only ever go to a minimum of 0, but with the way kind of like things are ordered, I suppose, within the context of a phase, the fact that the negatives come in first, so the -2 comes in first, and then the damage triggers, it gets really nasty. You kind of get around those otherwise slightly annoying qualifiers.
Yeah, exactly. Combat healing after showdowns and at the end of turn is kind of something to try to outmaneuver when possible, and this is one of those like rare scenarios where you can actually get away with something here. That's one of the reasons why I think Smokescreen is such a powerful card in general, even though you wouldn't really need it in this instance to clear the board. Just might manipulation in general lets you do some crazy cool stuff.
Yeah, look, there's double smokescreen, double singularities, another one of those foxes you were talking about before, and I'm just looking on the other side, like, yes, you've got the discipline, you've got the defy, those are great tools there, but I just don't know whether, if you end up in a counterspell war, in a kind of like stack war, whether your discipline and defy would be enough to deal with the pretty heavy onslaught of debuffs and just straight up damage coming out of hand there.
Yeah, it's tricky here. I mean, I want to say that you do have On Guard, and you can also see, like, the way that the On Guard's, kind of on the table here because of when the Tom Kench kind of reset back to base. Why would you go down a unit? Probably because you have something that benefits having only one unit to base. But yeah, just the values themselves, they just don't line up very well. Like +2 versus -4. Like, yeah, you're drawing a card here off the discipline, but I think this is like the critical turn where we're about to enter like one of those critical battles where like it doesn't matter how much value you're generating, you just need to win outright. And so Smokescreen, not drawing you a card, whereas Discipline does is
potentially important. Yeah, because it's self-replacing, right? Which is always important.
Yeah, but I think here I would rather take the extra 2 might, or like I'd take the better combat trick basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like the combat trick is a sledgehammer. Like it's like, here's my trick, your head comes off. It's nasty, and of course, like, don't get me wrong, it's a 2 exhaust and a recycle, one of those blues. So you can up in those positions if you're using this card early on, where you end up ruining your rune base a little bit. That's not really the case right here. You've got more than enough runes on board to afford a smokescreen drop or 2.
Okay, yeah. So it looks like Ahri's going to win the combat there against the wielder thanks to one of those smoke screens. And we still have... I guess we'll have 5 energy open thanks to Targon's when we pass the turn back. But nothing to do with it since we've used both the smoke screens.
Yeah, I mean, potentially I suppose you could use it as a defensive trick, but I don't know how necessarily scary that is right now if we just go right back round and have everyone reset their runes.
All right. I like moving the Oh, this is actually good. Moving the Yordle into this battlefield is fantastic. So here we're going to see what happens. A lot of things. Well, I think Gail's eventually still going to win combat here thanks to the discipline. But Ahri, the legend, is going to give the Mind Splitter -1, so it goes down to 6. Then Ahri, the champion, is going to give -2, so it's going to go down to 4, rather. Tank means that the Yordle is going to have to take combat damage first, which means you can't actually kill the Ahri because she's shielded by the Yordle. The extra 2 might here from the discipline, though, is enough to completely shred through the entire team.
What was a cool defensive plan, yeah.
Yeah, otherwise, like, I mean, the whole way that Natedog had set that up was like, all right, I've got tank to keep my best unit alive and also get rid of your best unit. Gale's like, nah, everything dies. Everything dies. And you can see that play was
Straight
so
set.
critically important that, yeah, Natedog just scoops. Yeah.
That's crazy. Because they literally, because of the board wipe, ends up scooping, didn't have enough in hand, and that's a nice comeback there. It was a nice idea, but just doesn't end up working. And here we go. There's those sideboards again.
Yep, thinking about changes here. So I feel like now that we're going second, make that swap back. So earlier I was advocating for the Mystic Poro, but now maybe the Sunlight Guardian's a little bit better since we'll have that extra energy that we can spend on our very first turn. Otherwise, no real changes that I'm looking for. Glad to see that the Mind Splitter did come in. That one I think is, it looked very good.
Yeah, that's 2 games in a row now. We saw in the first game, the single Mind Splitter was very potent, but the double Mind Splitter, just getting rid of some of those really annoying combat tricks, proved incredibly valuable. It's also just a big body that, yes, you get a lot of debuffs coming on through, but if you're having to burn 2, 3 cards, so many runes, so many recycles, it can get a bit miserable to try and, like, have to spend so many resources having already lost a card from that damn creature coming in the first place.
Yeah, and looking at from the Ahri side again, I mean, we did see the Singularity come in. A lot of these cards, unfortunately, though, I don't feel like they are too applicable. You could maybe actually argue for something like the Foxfire, but based off the play patterns that we're seeing so far here, Foxfire is great when you can like use the Ahri ability to decrease the might for your opponent's units, and then you can get multiple creatures. But the way Gale's been playing, it's really just been like one unit on a battlefield at a time, one unit at a battlefield at a time, and that's kind of what you would expect from Yasuo anyways, because you are just trying to leverage the one unit at a time and then dash it all around from battlefield to battlefield to battlefield.
Yeah, and again, worth noting, as you know, we've got Windsweeper Hillock, which is allowing that Ganky to come on in, so you can switch between battlefields. It can get a bit interesting. You have to go back to your base and then come back out again. You've got some good options there, and then I don't actually know, go over the Godwillow off the top of my head until I go and look at it. It's the standard, just get more draw. I remember that. In fact, I remember you and Jacob, our lovely producer for the day, doing a little bit of a how do you play Riftbound video where there were some Godwillows involved, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Godwillow is probably Ahri's best battlefield, and the fact that Ahri is going first, well, I would normally say is a very good thing, but we didn't have a turn 1 play here, and that is massive. Absolutely massive for Gail.
Yeah, there isn't that great mana curve even after the mulligan, which we didn't chat about so much, but that's what we're talking about when things like power curves come into play, and it means that they can't get onto that Godwillow early, and that would have been very lovely otherwise.
Yeah, really tricky decision here for Gail as well. Do you go after the Godwillow or do you go after the Windswept Hillock? The problem is that if you go after the Godwillow, first of all, there's the Ahri. There's 6 cards in Natedog's hand. We don't even know if this Wielder of Water is going to be able to survive. I actually kind of like going to the Hillock instead because the unit's not guaranteed to survive. That's one thing. But then also, if we move to the Hillock, okay, Gail's going to make the decision to go into the Grove here. If we move to the Hillock, we have the option to counterattack, to sort of take over that battlefield. And actually, sorry, I know I'm rambling here, but I want to shout out one play that Gail made here, which is great, which is kind of the first glimpse at dashing in and out to score a point with Yasuo, which is really cool because now you have scored your point for the turn, but you didn't have to commit anything into the passive ability of the Ahris.
And I just find that really aesthetically quite cool, because obviously to those of you who are coming into the game having played League of Legends, one of the things Yasuo for is that sweeping blade ability, that E, where you kind of go dashing through minions to go dashing right back out again, and you've always been quite a cool hit and run style character, and that ability to kind of see that play out here in terms of, are you all inning, sliding in, or are you trying to bring a creature back out, having gotten that nice little point uncontested and pulling yourself back out, feels really thematically cool, very well designed, little bit of flavor there, and I approve of that in terms of how you showcase Yasuo's combat style in a card game of all things, which is kind of quite impressive, really, all things said and done.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eyes on that copy of Singularity in hand here for Natedog. That card is going to come down and absolutely just nuke Yasuo's board, given that we haven't really gone wide enough here yet. And I guess, interestingly enough, putting the Stalwart Poro into the Grove of the Godwillow sort of signifies that Nate is ready to fight over this for the extra card draw. You also have access to Lecturing Yordle, which you can put into that battlefield to kind of protect your units like we saw in the last game.
Yeah.
But it seems like we're going to go for a more aggressive route of charming to kill the Wielder of Water.
Just that aggressive bit of board control there. And again, if you get the chance, and we've got that opportunity to talk about it, what does make that Lecturing Yordle so potent if we get the chance? Well, why are you such a fan of that one? I know we kind of mentioned it briefly in the last game, but we've got that opportunity. If you've kind of got an eye on that card in particular, what's making it so theoretically cool?
Yeah, so it's that has tank mostly. First and foremost, it draws the cards when it comes into play, so it's almost like free value, right? Like in other games, you may think that just having raw cards in hand is a very powerful thing, but what I've learned so far in playing is that like having units that you can put into battlefields to gain points really does mitigate the effectiveness of just infinite draw. So that's the first thing, right? Like it just replaces itself. It's good value. It gets on the board, but then also it has tank, which means that if you are going to get attacked, you can sort of protect your team in combination with your debuffs to get rid of their units because they have to kill a tank unit first, and that's just like another element of strategy that you have at your disposal with that card.
And I can see why, especially when you're running a lot of debuffs, keeping the debuffers alive and forcing damage onto slightly less critical pieces of the puzzle can be really valuable there. But of course we did see that little bit of a board reset coming on through, and actually GhaelWinds now in control of both battlefields here, feeling a bit happier once more.
Yeah, I think that gust that Gail had really did punish the charm. The plan was to hold the Grove of the God Willows with the Ahri and the Poro, and not give Gail a good opportunity to counterattack. And
Singularity it is.
The gust kind of cleared the board in Gale's favor, much like this Singularity is clearing the board back in Natedog's favor. And that's one thing that I will point out, right? Games with Grove of the God Willow I find to be very fun to watch because you truly get to see the depth to which players will go to deny their opponents from drawing cards. Very interesting psychology there.
And I think anyone who's played competitive formats of card games know that card draw is gold dust. Anyone that gets free card draw is living a great life here, especially within the context of something like Riftbound as well, where you kind of separated your value deck from your thick cards that do things deck, because of course you've got your rune deck and your main deck being two very separate things. That ability to just go rummaging through, go searching through your deck, picking things up can be very valuable because there are no tutors, there are no ways to go looking for specific cards. So just getting as many cards in hand as much as possible to give yourself more options, more combat tricks, more creatures to score points is hugely valuable, because you can't really afford to sit around with an empty board too freely, or you can end up dropping points very freely. And now I'm looking at GhaelWinds here with 3 creatures on the God Willow, a 5th point in hand as well versus just the one of Natedog. And I think Natedog is going to have to start making some big moves here, or this could get very dicey as the Yasuo immediately starts moving people around to try and control 2 battlefields at once.
Yeah, I think this was a very critical turn here for Gail, where he used ganking from the Windswept Hillock to move the Sunlight Guardian into the Grove, and says you have no units on board. You have very few units that actually accelerate units into play. So like the Sprite Mother, not good enough, and even Fox, you're not close to casting. So this seemed like a very good point for Gail, because that secures that first extra resource. And now we're sort of seeing what happens here, which is, all right, we've got that extra resource. Time to finally use our energy to deploy Yasuo, Remorseful. We've got a face down card, which can probably only be Zanya's. And Gail somehow, in this bad matchup, just looks massively ahead.
Yeah, but you said, when we came into this match, we said, look, I really like Natedog's opportunities. However, GhaelWinds knows this deck back and forth. If there is anyone in the community who knows how to pilot a Yasuo deck, it's GhaelWinds, and he made great changes through the sideboard in Game 2. He's come into Game 3 of the game plan as well, especially considering the battlefields have really been quite nuanced in terms of how you want to play this out, and the value from the Yasuo Legend ability to go sliding around alongside that ganking setup has been very strong. Has Nate got anything to work with? He's got a lot of cards in hand, but he'll need to start spending some of that energy, some of those runes. And we'll see whether he's got enough to make the big plays required here to stall GhaelWinds. Pretty formidable lead right now.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to that Yasuo Legend ability because that's what actually allowed Gail to score an extra point for simply 2 energy, and then even further beyond that, sort of like cement such a strong position on the Windswept Hillock, which is important because now you see Natedog's like, I can't go into the Hillock because, well, there's a Zhonya's there's a Yasuo that's going to be impossible to kill, so I'll go into the Grove to maybe deny a card, but that's the double bind right there because now if you're leaving that Yasuo open and available to come and attack the Ahri and to deal lethal damage to the Ahri with the passive ability. So I feel like Gail has kind of set up a very nice like string of webs to trip up Natedog no matter what direction they go in.
Yeah, and again, that Zhonya's with Yasuo's ability to move the exhausted creature back right where they came from can get really annoying because it's not even like they've left the battlefield properly. They just get slid right back in when Yasuo taps and stuff. Like, it gets very, very tricky, which kind of forces Natedog to really contest one of these boards very heavily. But the problem is, again, if you're looking for that kind of decisive cincher, that last point to really put the nail in the coffin, you need those uncontested battlefields, and contesting that Hillock, as we just said, is going to be, to put it bluntly, a nightmare.
Yeah. So we're resolving combat here. The On Guard is going to give +1 to one of the units here, but Ahri's giving -2. And then there's also the shield from the Sunlit Guardian. So all things considered, it looks like we're just going to go back to the base might of 3. Because we get +1 from the On Guard, +1 from shield, and then -2 from the Ahri. So it's a wash, but that's still winning combat here for Gail, which forces the smoke screen, which is great because that's one fewer smoke screen that Yasuo needs to deal with when he goes in to secure that final point next turn.
But then again, on the other side, for Natedog, you have to make those plays. You can't afford to give up another battlefield here. You have to start spending some resources, and those smoke screens, as powerful combat tricks as they are, well, you got to keep something on the board here because you've just been struggling to keep board state alive. Your creatures keep falling, and GhaelWinds been able to just keep his board a lot more populated, a lot more freely. Been moving around it a lot more aggressively too, for the reasons we've been describing. So it does put us in a pretty good position. The only thing I'll note here for GhaelWinds, only got 2 cards in hand, so it's running a little shy here of card advantage. And if things do go wrong in these closing stages, there's a world here where you just run out of cards to kind of make a comeback if there was a way for things to go wrong. Say a Singularity gets drawn or something.
Ah, now this is incredible. So we're going to see the Zhonya's finally get activated after Nate has sort of done the best that he can with combat. There's a new errata for Zhonya's that came out actually maybe like a few weeks ago, so it's not exactly new. But what Zhonya's is one of those few hidden cards that can actually impact both battlefields.
Okay.
So that's why we get to see the Sunlit Guardian get protected despite the hidden card being in the Windswept Hillock.
Actually didn't know that. I thought it was only for one battlefield. I clearly missed that errata. That's actually seriously important.
Yeah. So if you have to choose with your hidden card, then it will only apply to the battlefield that you're at. But Zhonya's doesn't do that, so its effect applies globally. And in this instance, it's even crazier because Zhonya's like, all right, the next time a unit would die, protect it. Well, both of Gail's units were about to die, so it's even better because then Gail gets to choose which unit survives. And then
man,
readies into his next turn with just the Yasuo, the Sunlit Guardian, and then even the Clockwork Keeper that can all come in and secure that final point. So Gail is somehow able to take this match down, and I mean, that's kind of just expert gameplay right there. I'm pretty stoked to see it.
That was really, really clean stuff. Great breakdown on the Zhonya's play pattern. You just called out actually early on as well the really astute uses of that Yasuo ability to slide in and out of early battlefields, the use of the Windy Hillock versus the Grove as well. I think it's a really cool matchup in terms of how battlefields really change, how champions are going to interact, because in a more normal battlefield setup, and maybe the Ahri has a better time in terms of managing where those creatures are going. Not here, not now, and not with the Zhonya's activation like that.
Yeah, sort of looking at that game 3 from start to finish, I think the critical issue is we just didn't have a unit on that very first turn for Ahri, and when you put Grove of the Godwillow out, which you're forced to in this instance, you know, that's such a massive downside because you're basically getting swept from under the rug here. You don't have a unit to sort of create that initial snowball, and Gail took advantage of that very, very brilliantly with just stealing points with Yasuo passive or legend ability when possible, and even I think that's at least 2 points that the Yasuo legend ability got, one with the early Wielder of Water, and then one with moving the Clockwork Keeper into the Windswept Hillocks to deploy the Remorseful Yasuo later.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, I think what really excites me about this is that you kind of get to see how unexplored some archetypes are and what potential they have for just powerful gameplay. So yeah, well done, Gail. Very well done.
Some cool exploration of undiscovered, there's the word I'm looking for, ground. Some fertile exploration to be done with Yasuo at some point in the future, all you folks at home. And also remember, mulligan aggressively. Make sure you've got a good couple opening turns, or you too may end up with no creatures on board and giving up 3 points to Yasuo, which would suck. What also will suck is the fact that we have to leave you for a few moments while we wait for our next series. But worry not, we will be right back with round 2 in a few moments. So get this, or take this opportunity to go get yourself a drink, go get yourself a bit of a stretch, and come sit your butts right back down, ready for round